Okay, Chair, we're now streaming live on YouTube. I'll hand the meeting to yourself.
Good evening and welcome to East Devon District Council's Cabinet meeting for the 8th of June 2022. I'm the Chair, Councillor Paul Arnott, and welcome to anybody watching live. Based on a decision of the Council to continue virtual meetings until the 31st of October 2022, I remind both members and public attending or watching that the Council has delegated much of its decision-making taking power to our senior officers. May I remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting when we reserve the right to remove or disconnect any participant who is disrupting. Please turn off any telephone devices or set to silent. In the event of a break in the internet connection, we'll try and get back on within 15 minutes, but if we can't, the meeting will have to be adjourned and come back together at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. Any members of the public wishing to view the agenda, it's at eastdevon.gov.uk. We'll now start the meeting by a roll call of committee members here present by our Democratic Services Officer, Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with yourself, Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Hayward.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you, Amanda.
Councillor Jackson.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Councillor Ledger.
Present, thank you, Amanda.
Councillor Loudon.
Present, Amanda, thanks.
Councillor Rickson.
Present, thank you.
And Councillor Rowland.
Present, thanks, Amanda.
Thank you all. I can confirm your quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you, Cabinet. We go to agenda item 1 now, public speaking, and our first public speaker is Alderman Roger Giles, who has 3 minutes. And when you're ready, Roger, please, off you go.
Right, thank you, Chairman. On the 18th of December 2019, I attended an East Devon District Council meeting and was made an honorary alderman. Here's the badge. It was an honour I accepted on behalf of the people of Ossory, whom I had represented on East Devon for 24 years. It was something to look back on with a certain amount of fondness and pride. However, the serious sex offender John Humphreys was also made an honorary alderman on the 18th of December 2019. That decision, made after he had been arrested, has tarnished the whole system of recognising the work of former councillors by making them honorary aldermen. Of course, the tarnishing of the award of honorary alderman status is of infinitely less consequences than the effect on the victims of the abhorrent crimes of John Humphreys. But Chairman, I've come here this evening to ask what you, East Devon District Council, is doing about what is undoubtedly the greatest scandal that has enveloped East Devon for very many years. On the 20th of April this year, East Devon agreed to set up an independent inquiry to investigate how John Humphreys was rewarded subsequent to his arrest for his terrible crimes. And I looked at the minutes, and this is an extract. So what was agreed included that the council requests that the chief executive provides a report to Cabinet at the earliest opportunity to enable it to consider commissioning an independent investigational inquiry by an appropriate independent body. Yet, Chairman, on 8th of June, 7 weeks later, as far as I'm aware, no such report has been seen. So my question, Chairman, is what kind of message does this send to the wider world about the seriousness and urgency with which East Devon District Council is treating this matter? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Giles. And I didn't know you were going to mention Alderman. When I called you Alderman Giles, I was just showing off. I remember you were an Alderman. It turned out to be absolutely apposite. We'll come back to you at the end of these questions on that. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Mark Hawkins, please. So you have 3 minutes, please, Mr. Hawkins.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wish to make a statement relevant to the John Humphrys investigation. I have been shocked by the intransigence of certain organisations towards achieving full transparency for the benefit of the victims, known and unknown. I wish it to be placed on the record that I was first made aware of an investigation at some time in 2017. My source was a trusted and reliable friend. He feels the same about his source, and we were told that it had come from a Conservative councillor. At the same time, we were of the view that this was something which could easily be rooted in malicious homophobic gossip, so did not discuss further or share further with others. It seemed an awfully long time before the discreet publicity when Humphreys was formally charged, during which time I spoke to him when he was delivering election literature unaccompanied in my neighbourhood, including entering the property of neighbours with school children. With this knowledge in mind, even though I doubted it at the time, I cannot comprehend how any organisation can claim that not one person within an ever-expanding Venn diagram of related groups was aware of his legal troubles. I have made this point to members of all local parties, with the exception of the Greens, in completely non-partisan communications. Most have accepted this point. 2 Conservatives have engaged with me, stating clearly that they personally were not aware, which I believe, and in one case outlining the efforts they had made to inquire after the extent of any awareness. 2 Conservatives, our MP and my ward councillor, have failed to respond. I'm concerned that East Devon Council's proposed investigation is being scoped to limit its usefulness, with a suggested starting date of 2016. How can we discount the possibility of communication between those police officers involved and other organisations when the police are being so unhelpful in respect of their actions in 2004 to 7, 2012 and 1990 to 91, as well as the unknown dates involving the victims who did not come to trial? I note that Mr. Williams seemed amused by his own suggestion of a Masonic conspiracy. There is nothing amusing about this case. I've noted over a number of years that the very talented Mr. Williams has strong protective instincts. Also, that numerous investigations over those same years have been narrower in scope than would be in the public interest. This includes the one leaked last week, which reads as narrower.
So, Mr. Hawkins, can I stop you there?
Okay.
Because where I suspect you're about to go is something that itself should never have been leaked, and that's the subject of another internal investigation.
Apologies, Chair.
Also, yeah. So thank you for that. Okay. Thank you.
Could I just finish? I have a little bit to go. Is that all right, Chair?
If you don't go anywhere near the investigation,
yes, apologies for that. Yes,
another 20 seconds. Fine.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, some of these investigations should have involved the police, and one of which I believe put the authority in breach of its obligations under the Localism Act 2011. Of course, Mr. Williams would be more aware of its obligations than me, having been involved in the relevant consultations in the preceding year. Thank you, and apologies for the transgression.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Thank you for that. It's a difficult subject, this, isn't it? So, just looking for. Sorry, my script has disappeared, and I'll be. Bear with me. I'll be there in just a second. Here it comes. So, our final public speaker is Councillor Jess Bailey. Over to you, please, Jess.
Thank you very much.
Let's start the clock again when Jess emerges from an episode of Doctor Who, is what it sounds like there, doesn't it? Where are we? We can't see you. Oh, we can't see you or hear you yet, Councillor.
Sorry,
Bailey.
apologies about that. Yes, my concern also relates to the John Humphrys issue, and I'm very disappointed by how long it's taking to progress the commissioning of the independent report. The council agreed on the 20th of April that it wished to go ahead with this urgently. And here we are in June and we haven't seen anything. I think that the longer the delay is, the more the council is open to question and is open to, it needs to be seen to be acting expeditiously. After all, the aldermanship was removed in September last year, and I don't understand why a report wasn't done then. But nevertheless, we need to do this urgently. So I'd really politely ask the leader of the council, I don't understand why we have to wait until July. We've seen from the speakers today that they have concerns about it. They have concerns about the delay. They have concerns about the scope. And until we get the report forward, those concerns are going to continue. And I would ask the leader very politely if he would consider bringing forward that report sooner than July, maybe next week or the week after, so that actually we can discuss the scope and we can get started with the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey and Mr Hawkins and Alderman Giles as well. I think probably it's fair and helpful if I can ask Mark as CEO just to remind us of what the schedule is at the moment for this report and investigation and the reasons why it's coming forward in July rather than this month. Are you happy to cover that, Mark, please?
Yeah, sure. So those of you who attended the annual meeting would have heard a statement from the Chair of Council who outlined the procedure that I had adopted to date and the procedure that I was following with regard to bringing a report. So it depends how far you want to go back, but if you go back to the request for scrutiny to have a report, I did prepare a report answering the questions that scrutiny asked. That report then went, or the minutes of that report then went to Council, and as we now know, Council wasn't happy with the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee, so the matter was referred to a report. Following that, I had a meeting with interested councillors, and it was agreed that I would write to all the group leaders asking for their views on what they would wish to see included within the scope of the report. I had 3 replies. On receipt of those replies, I had prepared instructions to Council because it was quite apparent to me that this was something where I would need independent legal advice to help guide me in the preparation of the report. Those instructions to Council were issued, and the Chair at the Council meeting, at the annual meeting, did say that a report on the back of receiving advice from Council would come to the July Cabinet. So that's currently where we are and the programme that I'm working to. I had a conference yesterday with the barrister in question, and I'm awaiting his opinion. And when I have that opinion, I will prepare a report. But if this is to be done properly, it needs to be done in a measured way. And it also needs to be done in full knowledge of the legal powers and legal constraints that apply to the Council. So my advice to Cabinet is that I will bring a report in July. Pushing the timetable earlier is inappropriate, and you may well end up making an erroneous decision.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I suppose to reassure people, once Cabinet's made a decision on that in July, we'll be looking for a report that's concluded by the end of this year, say. I mean, obviously that's dependent upon the advice you get, but I mean, presumably, we're not going to do a Sue Gray, are we? We're looking for something, in a timely fashion. Oh, sorry, Mark, I was just checking with you.
That was that a question, yeah.
Yes,
well,
sorry, no, that was, yeah.
I'd refer you back to the advice I gave Council when Councillor Bailey moved her motion at the time. You need to go into this with your eyes open in terms of the length of time it's likely to take, the potential cost, and also the implications legally of what we can or can't do. And rushing something as important as this is, in my opinion, inappropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, public speakers, for that, and to Mark for clarifying. I can add to something at this stage which might be helpful and of interest. Members of the public will remember that it was in December, wasn't it, last year, that one of the victims' statement was read to council by Councillor Ragg, and there were sufficient concerns from that I told council that I would write to the police, looking to see if they would refer themselves to the Independent Office for Police Conduct in relation to what was being said by one of the victims, and also to the Conservative Party to ask them to give us any kind of account. So as we stand now, 6 months later, nothing has been heard from the Conservative Party nationally, regionally, at district level, or anything at all on this, although I understand that they're indicating that they'd be happy to, they don't have an alternative really, to cooperate with whatever process Mark brings forward for us to look at. And that's disappointing because members will remember at the last cabinet, but quite inadvertently, a Conservative councillor disclosed that our MP had been a guest of Humphreys, and it was said that he'd been a guest for 2 weeks. And Mr. Jupp then, in response to a question from a journalist, confirmed it in fact had been 2 months. So there are questions around that, principally, in my view, about why nobody acted in the spirit of the Nolan principles. Why was this not said earlier? Why did it have to be forced out of people after an inadvertent disclosure last month at Cabinet, and after a quite front-footed, aggressive investigative journalist put in a question? The other thing I can confirm is I have now heard back from the police. I'd had a holding reply, but now 17th of May 2022, I've heard again. And the gist of it is, it's rather interesting, is that they, members may recall that the victim had been summoned to Sidmouth Police Station about allegations that he'd been harassed by a Tiverton-based police officer. And this letter confirms that a complaint in 2014 was formally recorded and investigated and finalised to the satisfaction of the victim, who did not appeal the outcome. This complaint was in relation to the conduct of an individual officer, who has subsequently retired. So that'll be interesting. But the final paragraph in relation to whatever Mark helps us with is this: I note the council's intention to commission an independent investigation, which is intended to include a review of the conduct of the police investigation. Well, that may or may not be the case. Whilst we are keen to support the council in identifying any relevant learning, I would need to see the draft terms of reference for any subsequent investigation before formally confirming my support. Once such terms of reference have been drafted, please do forward for any further consideration. So it looks like we'll be in a position to do that in July. That's very helpful. That's from Jim Colwell, the Deputy Chief Constable. Right, thank you very much for those public questions. And once again, I will fumble my way back towards the script. Agenda item 2, please, the minutes of the previous meeting. Yes, Councillor Loudon, please.
Sorry, there's a number of us have got our hands up.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
And I don't know whether you were intentionally moving on or whether it would be helpful. I'm one of the portfolio holders related to this matter.
Thank you, John, and you are the first speaker listed here. So if you could go now, thank you very much.
Right, thank you. As I said, I'm one of the 2 portfolio holders that this matter sort of straddles, and I think it's important for the record that I say clearly this is the most unpleasant matter that we're having to deal with after the event. And I would want to give reassurance to members of the public, to members, and if necessary to officers, that what we need to do is to approach this in a judicious way. That's not to drag our heels. And the point that the chief executive has just made about the approach to getting moving towards an inquiry was one that has been carefully discussed, and Councillor Bailey will remember being at a meeting with some of us at the end of April where we talked through some of the issues that we needed to consider. I know she wasn't content with the approach adopted, and that's her right not to be. But the way in which the chief executive has just outlined the stages we need to go through were discussed and were agreed within that meeting, and then subsequently taken through due process as he has outlined. And I have to say, you know, this has the ability, an inquiry has the ability to become so wide and far-reaching, as the chief executive says, potentially then to take this council outside of any remit that it might reasonably have. And therefore, taking legal advice about what we might and might not seek to do in light of, if you like, the proposals sought from group leaders is the right and proper thing. And the chief executive reminded us of the comments made by the chair of council at annual council, where it was said that the intention was for the chief executive to bring forward his initial report about how to take this forward, having taken legal advice, and that would be at our July cabinet meeting. So this is not kicking it into the long grass. It's not dragging our heels. It's trying to do this so that we don't find ourselves getting tripped up further along the way, and then we will be into long grassing. That's for sure. So I just thought that might be helpful, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. It is. I suppose my view also, in addition, would be, I suspect it's the feeling of the majority of members, is if the key parties involved, associated with Councillor Humphreys, had simply made a clean breast of this back in last September, we wouldn't be having to do this now. Councillor Jess Bailey, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Mark and to Councillor Loudon. No, I didn't agree because I felt that going out to group leaders wasn't the right thing to do. I think that the right thing to do is would have been for the chief executive to have identified the reasons, the parameters of the review. That's fine going to take legal advice, but I think that that could have been achieved more quickly. I think it's reasonable to have expected the reports to have come forward within a month to 6 weeks. And I just hope that it can be done as expeditiously as possible. And I'm disappointed that it's taken as long as it has.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. And as you can imagine, your last line there, as expeditiously as possible, has my own personal full support. Thank you. Councillor Philip Skinner, please.
And I would just like to add all of what's been said. Sorry about my croaky throat. I'm trying to keep it limited. All what's been said, and especially what Councillor John Loudon has said, and particularly what Mark Williams has suggested. You know, we're taking advice on this, and we're going along as expeditiously as we possibly can. I want to be absolutely clear that we, as I am the new leader of the Conservative group, we will be giving all our help and support in whatever way this direction this is going to take. And I'll just leave it to that. All that's been said, the speculation, is something we don't need to get to at this point. Thank you.
That's greatly appreciated, Councillor Skinner, as leader of the new leader of the Conservative group. Thank you for that. Councillor Eileen Wragg, please.
Thank you. I'd like to endorse what Mark Williams has said, also John Loudon. There will be no cover-up. Let's be clear on that. There will definitely be no cover-up. What we have been told by the victim and his mother is so deeply disturbing, it will have far-reaching consequences. We are sure that this is far, far greater an issue than some appreciate. And this administration have no holds barred in uncovering what happened, and we will employ the best legal counsel to dig into this. And further to that, there are concerns about the way that the complaints were or were not followed up. And there's been a further disturbing development regarding another incident, not involving sexual abuse, but harm to a child, serious harm to a child, which seemingly has been disregarded by Devon and Cornwall Police. I forwarded the details with the permission of the complainant, who is deeply disturbed at what she witnessed. It is a family from another county, and the police in that county made a cursory check, but there are serious concerns for that child's safety. So there are flaws within the system which have to be thoroughly investigated independently, and this council will put all of its muscle behind to make sure that our people, our residents, are kept safe. It's obvious. As you know, I met with the victim and his mother towards the end of last year, and what we were told, where children can't even go to their parents because they've been so taken in by the perpetrators.
It's horrendous. Okay, so, thank you.
Just to be sure that the speakers tonight, please don't think this is being brushed under the carpet. We're going to bring it out into the open. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Wragg, for that. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Councillor Loudon, for pointing out that there were those speakers, all of whom have now spoken, and thank you for those members too. So now we do go to agenda item 2, which is to look at the minutes of our previous meeting from the 4th of May 2022. If anyone has a comment, please could you raise your electronic hand, and if I see no hands, I'll take this as an indication that
I have my hand up.
Agreed. Thank you. Councillor Nick Hookway, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, item 227 of the minutes, car park issues. There's a paragraph at the end which states that a number of issues were not unresolved and that would be brought back to a future meeting of Cabinet. I've since been informed that a resident has been told that there is going to be a meeting involving interested parties. Can I just have clarification, please, of exactly what is happening? Is it Cabinet or a specially formed meeting, please?
Okay, thanks, Nick. Can you just, I'm just loading the minutes up. What page was that again?
It's page 11 of the minutes, agenda item 227.
Okay, thank you very much. Just getting there now. Where are we? Car park issues.
Yes, after the recommendation, Cabinet agreed that the remainder of the issues be brought back to a future meeting of Cabinet. But I've seen sight of a letter sent to a resident which suggests that a meeting of all interested parties will take place in the near future. Can I just have clarification of exactly what is going on, please?
Okay, probably, and sorry for the hospital pass, Simon, I might have to come to you on that if you can help us with that. I should just point out our S151 officer, Simon Davey. This is since the departure of the officer who was running car parks, has sort of very kindly taken this on for a bit. Simon, can you help us there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. Yes, if you remember, there is the intention to bring a report back to Cabinet, but what members, in terms of discussing the various issues, mainly around camper vans and a few issues still outstanding regarding reports that have gone to scrutiny and recommendations, was there was quite a few issues and quite a lot of detail to get through. So what's been decided as an approach is to have a workshop, which we're looking to arrange for early July, for key members and a few representatives, perhaps from Axminster Town Council, for example. We're still putting that list together, and we'll seek sort of advice as to whether we've got that list right. But whether we can have, rather than a committee first, have a workshop around those various issues, explore them in a lot more detail than we could at a Cabinet meeting, to then bring forward some suggestions for Cabinet to consider in terms of the way forward on car parking issues. So I think that's probably the issues that have been raised in recent days regarding camper vans. That potential workshop has been muted as a way forward to dealing with those issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hookway, is that helpful?
That is helpful. Thank you very much. Yes, I hadn't been informed about this meeting, so I'm glad to be informed now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cagle, you have your hand up. Very pleased to hear from you, but this item is about approval of these minutes. It's not a debate about camper vans in Exmouth. So if there's anything you'd like to say that's sort of a bit more limited than opening a new debate, I'll be very grateful. Over to you, Fred.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not intending to open a debate, but just to ask the question, we have a established camper van and motorhome TAF that represents from the Devon County, East Devon and Exmouth Town Council. So why are we not using that vehicle, if you like, excuse the pun, to actually discuss this item? Because it's all very well East Devon District Council discussing it in a car parking TAF, which is designed for car parking. And here we are, crossing over. So let's be clear on who's saying what and who's discussing what and who's doing what, because that TAF is still in operation.
Okay, I think let's just note that comment, actually, Fred. Thank you very much. Unless an officer desperately wants to come back, I think we've heard that. Thank you. Right, thank you very much indeed. I've got one minor change, which is, in the light of the public speaking earlier, I do think we're going to have to get this absolutely right. I believe that what on page 5, that what Councillor Maddie Chapman said was the final line. He stayed in a flat that was let out by John Humphreys as it was empty at the time for a few weeks while waiting for completion of his house. From my memory, Councillor Chapman said 2 weeks. That's as I recall it. So unless anybody particularly wants to challenge that, and that is important if we're going through this process, I'd like to see that changed, please. I can't see anybody particularly objecting to that. So, okay. So in which case, no other hands. Thank you very much.
Yes. Sorry, Chair. Could I just comment?
Oh, yes. Sorry, Mark. Yes, go on. Yes, please.
Could you just say that allow officers to actually check the transcript?
Exactly.
And we can put in what was on the transcript.
Absolutely.
Councillor Chapman's not actually here, so it's probably fair all round. We'll check the transcript, and whatever she said, we'll put in, if that's okay.
Do you mean the recording, Mark, don't you?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. And presumably, Phil, that's what the point you were going to make as well.
I was going to say, rather than putting something in now, it'd be much clearer if you actually had the transcript, and Mark has pointed that out, and thank you very much for that. That's what we need to go by, because that's the proof. Thank you.
Yeah, fair dues. Absolutely agree with that. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I can't believe it's taken us
Yeah,
Yes,
just
Councillor Loudon, please.
Councillor Chapman is here. Maybe I assume that her silence means that she was okay with what you said.
Oh, okay. I think maybe, without embarrassing Councillor Chapman, I think maybe let's go with Mark's suggestion to check the recording. Let's do that. But
Please, Chair, leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, right. So now we go on to agenda item 3. Apologies, please. Amanda, do we have any that you're aware of?
I haven't received any, Chair.
Okay, I haven't either. Anybody else have any apologies? No. Okay, thank you very much. In which case we now go on to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. So this is going to be a bit of a trial run for us all. We've done this already in a couple of meetings, so we're getting used to it. It's a much improved, tightened declaration of interest, code of conduct, but it is quite complicated. So when your name is called and mindful of the new code of conduct, please can you state your declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, state exactly what the interest is and the specific type of interest you are declaring. And this is done by a roll call by our DSO, Amanda.
Chair, just before Amanda starts, can I just ask Councillor Loudon to put his virtual hand down, just to avoid any confusion?
Thank you. I was ignoring him anyway. That's okay.
I'll start
okay,
with
sorry,
you,
Amanda,
Chair.
over to you.
I'll start with you, Councillor Arnott.
Well, I have one in Part B, so I better declare it now because I won't be in Part B. So for the Part B item, which is on Colleton Grammar School, Gym Leisure Centre rather, because I am the ward councillor for Colleton and because my wife is a member of LED and regularly uses that leisure centre, I'm going to declare a directly related NRI and I will leave the meeting before that agenda item starts, and no other declarations than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you. Having taken advice from officers and having reviewed the flowchart handily provided by the monitoring officer for agenda items 14 and 15, I would like to declare an effects NRI in both of those cases. So I've declared that, and I believe that allows me to remain, discuss, and vote on those items. Thank you very much indeed. Is that sufficient?
And can we have an explanation? I feel, is there an explanation to why?
The explanation. So as members are aware and members of the public, I work for Axminster Town Council, but having looked at the recommendations that could potentially be made, Axminster Town Council, my pecuniary interest is certainly not affected in either way by a decision of this council. If we run through the flowchart, I believe that it does affect the finances, or it affects the finances of the council. However, they are not affected in any way that, to a greater extent than most people. Axminster as a council will get no benefit because the district council in both cases is funding an external body, and Axminster Town Council happens to be working with those bodies, but it will still participate whether or not the district council decides to take its action. I'm not affected financially, and I am no worse or no better affected than any other resident of Axminster, being a resident of Axminster myself, by any actions that the district council takes. So I receive no personal benefit, nor does one of my partner. None of my ORIs are affected, but I believe this is an effects NRI that I should bear in the public interest, but I believe my judgment is not clouded by having this role. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
None, thank you, Amanda.
Councillor Jackson.
Only in respect to items 14 and 15 as I'm the ward councillor, but that's none of the specified registers of interest that I need to.
So Amanda, that's a no interest, Amanda. I spoke to Councillor Jackson earlier.
That's a no interest, is
no
it?
interest.
Thank you, Anita. Councillor Young.
No interest, thank you.
Councillor Ledger.
So for agenda item 13, obviously I'm a member of the Strategic Planning Committee, which will have the decision on which sites get which of the new towns get allocated, as well as being a member of the workshops that are going to be taking place for it. That's an effects NRI. With agenda item 14, I'm the ward member, a Seaton Town Councillor, and obviously a resident of Seaton, another effects NRI. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Ledger, affects NRI, but having applied the test, you're content that you're staying?
Very content.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
Amanda, thank you.
Councillor Rickson.
No interest to declare, thank you.
Councillor Rowland.
Agenda item 14 as a resident and ward member for Seaton and effects NRI.
Okay, thank you all.
Amanda, just any confirmation of any other non-committee members who may.
Anita. Yes.
Right. Sorry,
I've got a little statement. Yes, you're quite right.
We're still trying to work our way through this, aren't we, everybody?
Other members in the meeting that aren't cabinet members. So are there any other councillors in this meeting who want to declare an interest that may affect their ability to remain in the meeting for any of the items listed on the agenda? Councillor Skinner, I can see you've raised your hand.
Well, being all new to this, and I haven't been to a previous meeting, but Councillor Ledger was speaking about something that being a member of strategic planning, and I am a member of strategic planning. So I'm looking at, I take it, pot 13, where he's talking about commissions of landscape assessment work to inform site choices for new town development, exemption to contract standing orders. I don't really know whether I should be taking an interest or not. I suppose the question to ask is was being on the strategic planning committee part of the reason why he needed to declare an interest of some sort? Where is Councillor Ledger? He's gone off me. Councillor Ledger's gone off my screen now.
I think, shall I help you, Councillor Skinner? I think it is the matter under discussion is just the noting of the exemption to contract standing orders. So there's no decision to be made, assuming you don't have any other connection with anybody involved in that exemption, the contractor. Then I think that's fine. And I think it's probably for you.
I don't know who the contractor is, so therefore on that basis I wouldn't know.
Okay, it's on the agenda because the exemption is there. I think that's assuming there's no other involvement. I think that's on this one is a no interest for you, I would suggest.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Just trying to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see Councillor, two more councillors got their hands up. Councillor Faithful, did you want to declare an interest?
Following from the conversation before the meeting, found that Ottery Refugee Response Group does get mentioned in paragraph 4.2 of agenda item 11. We might be wanting funding in the future, but there's nothing immediate. So I believe it's still no interest, is it?
I think, Councillor, my advice is that if if you're not directly, if the Ottery organisation is not affected by the detail in this report, then I would suggest this is no interest.
Yeah.
If you were more directly affected, then that would be different.
Yeah.
Okay, next, Councillor Hartnell.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, just to declare an NRI in respect of item 14, and the reason being that I'm a Seaton Town Councillor, Devon County Councillor, and a business owner in Seaton. But I don't believe that I would benefit any more than any other business would in Seaton as a result of any interventions through that project.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's an effects NRI, and you stay in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're saying. You don't consider that you're affected any more than anybody else.
No.
So effects NRI. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Moulding.
Yes, thank you, Amanda, and members. I wish to declare an other registrable interest, ORI, in the matter relating to Axminster Skatepark, which is item 15 on the agenda. I am a trustee of the Axminster Skatepark charity and also president of Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre, which is a charitable organisation. I've asked for advice on what I should do with regard to declaring interest on this item. And I've asked Mark Williams, who passed the baton over to Anita Williams, who very kindly has come back to me and suggested that this is an ORI. The matter being discussed directly relates to the finances and well-being of the skate park. And as I am a trustee of the skate park, but have no financial interest, I obviously have an interest in the well-being of the skate park. And therefore, I would wish to speak on this item when we come to it, but I will leave the meeting following my comments and whether anybody has any questions they might wish to ask me before I leave. Thank you.
Councillor Parr.
Thank you. I asked Debbie to take me through the thing, and the only thing I could find on item 16 was that I'm ward member for Collie Valley, but I don't believe I have to declare that. There's no other registrable interest, and I've no DPI. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you very much, officers, members, and members of the public. Just to apologise, really, this is, as you would have heard, an entirely new form of the Code of Conduct, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do it in under 3 hours next time. So we'll get a bit swifter. So thank you very much for bearing with us on that. We now go to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, late items or matters of urgency. There is one confidential late report which officers recommend should be dealt with in this way. Agenda item 16, Collison Leisure Centre, proposals to restructure operating arrangements with the school, in which I've already declared an interest. Agenda item 6, confidential exempt items, as above, that covers that. Now, agenda item 7, the forward plan. Are members happy to recommend the forward plan for approval? Can I look for any speakers on that from outside of Cabinet? Nobody there. I'm happy to recommend from the chair that we do recommend. So any members of Cabinet wish to speak on that, vote against, or so forth? No, so those are duly approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, the minutes of the Recycling and Waste Partnership Board held on the 27th of April 2022. There's a recommendation to Cabinet there on page 16 of the agenda. So do members wish to make any particular recommendation on this item, or can we agree to move this forward without specific recommendations? So anybody have anything to say on that? If it's silent, then I will assume you're happy to put it forward without specific recommendations. I see no hands. So thank you. That then moves forward as per the Recycling and Waste Partnership Board recommendation to us. Agenda item 9 is the minutes of the Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group held on the 3rd of May 2022. There is a recommendation on page 23 of the agenda. And again, are we happy to accept that as it is, or would we like to put forward some altered recommendations? Would anybody like to make any comment on that? Or are we happy to let that move forward? I see no yellow hands, so thank you very much. Councillor Fred Cahill, please.
Thank you, Chair, Leader. I just wanted to ask a question about Queen's Drive Delivery Group. Initially, it was set up with a term of reference. Now it seems to be changing its term of reference to not just about the Queen's Drive, but Exmouth as a whole. I mean, before we had the Queen's Drive Delivery Group, we had the Exmouth Generation Board. Now we have got a Queen's Drive Delivery Group to deliver Queen's Drive projects. And we seem to be crossing over into Exmouth Town, not just Queen's Drive. So, you know, can we get some clarification? Because I know the public will want clarification as to what Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group are going to do, because it seems to me that they're not delivering the Queen's Drive, but now they want to move on to the town of Exmouth and not really involve Exmouth Town Council, apart from to liaise and share information with Exmouth Town Council. Well, I'm sorry, but Exmouth Town Council shouldn't need to have a bigger say in what happens in their town, like other towns have and town councils. So I do question what we're doing here. Maybe someone can clarify that for me.
Yeah, I mean, a number of people can. I'll kick off if I may. So when we rebooted the Queen's Drive Delivery Group 18 months, 2 years ago, the entire direction of travel was to try and do something broader than just the seafront and to include the town as well. And one of the key actions that we instigated and has now been completed is the appointment of a specific new officer to look at how the seafront and the town centre might be advanced. I mean, I very politely disagree on the relationship of what's gone on Queen's Drive itself. If you go down there, as I have this summer, the public spaces down there are absolutely humming with the public and with various offers, and there are other offers that will be coming forward as well down there. So I think as the first effectively post-COVID summer, it's looking extremely good. Many sites in Exmouth have been identified as places which may be appropriate for consideration under the local plan to help the development of wider Exmouth, including the town centre as well. So I'm very clear that that's what these terms of reference are helping us to do, is to help us move forward. As far as the exclusion of Exmouth Town Councillors is concerned, I'm afraid, Councillor Cahill, it's just not true. There are a number of Exmouth Town Councillors who sit on the Queen's Drive Delivery Board, Councillor Aurora Bailey, for example, who make a fantastic and invaluable contribution. And of course, anybody can attend and speak at the permission of the chair. But I mean, I might, can I perhaps ask Councillor Nick Cookway to sort of help me here a little bit as well on
yes,
how this
yes, certainly, Chair. Thank you. Yes, I absolutely agree with what you just said. Appointment of a new officer, Jerry Mills, has made a big difference. He's producing a huge amount of work in the background for not only the development of Queen's Drive, but also for sites in the town. The town council are fully involved from the mayor downwards and have been instrumental in thinking about new placemaking initiatives that will be taking place. And we hope to be discussing those shortly. There will be a consultation going out to members of the public shortly to ask their views about what they would like to see happen in Exmouth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway, for that. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks. I just endorse everything that's just been said, but I would point out as well that the new officer, the project manager, the clues in the title. His title is Place and Prosperity Exmouth, and he's actually says in the minutes about that he's been consulting as well with Exmouth Town Council and meeting a wide body of people. So I think that in the minutes actually explains a lot more to hopefully assuage Fred's concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. I know we've got Mr.
Can I just come back, Leader?
Well, no, thank you, Fred. We've got a long.
No, thank you. Okay.
Well, no, thank you. But unless you want to say, you accept.
Well, I just want to add that I do hope that we are going to have a full and proper consultation with the public, and not just a questionnaire on the internet, but maybe a public meeting so that people can actually challenge.
Right, Fred, all I can say is, forgive me if I feel slightly impatient. If you've been attending these meetings, reading the minutes, you know that all of this is being done. You would know that Jerry, the officer, has vast experience of these consultations, both in Northern Ireland and in Scotland already. So this will not be the botched consultation that your party carried out some years ago. This will be properly done. It will be the model of a consultation. Okay?
I'm really pleased to hear that, Leader.
Well, good.
Let's
see
if the proof is...
keep up with the story, Councillor Cagle, and then we can say something.
Please do not be insulted, Leader. Let's see if the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Thank you.
Well, the proof has already been given to you tonight, so I suggest you eat the first few spoonfuls, because it's pretty bloody obvious what's going on. My apologies, I didn't mean to say that B word there, so I withdraw that from the record. It would be useful.
Well, you still made it though, Leader, and that's not very polite, is it? Thank you.
It just slipped out. It isn't very polite, and I apologise, but you can understand the frustration, can't you, when what we have tried to do is rescue this Exmouth project. We have absolutely worked our fingers to the bone on it. And if we have councillors who haven't done the due diligence to find out what's actually going on and offer the kind
of... That's not what I asked, and that's not the answers I got, but there we are. We'll move on.
Well, no, what did you ask? Can you just tell me the question that you asked that hasn't been answered tonight?
We'll move on, thank you.
So your question has been answered. Okay, good, thank you. Right, so moving on now, please, to the next agenda item. Well, we still had the recommendation on page 23 of the agenda, so are we happy to accept that recommendation, which is effectively to endorse the themes and characteristics supported by the delivery group, to proceed to consult publicly in the manner set out in this report, para 1.6 to 1.9, to seek views on the identified themes and characteristics, to help form a term of reference for placemaking in Exmouth. Are we happy to, and also that within the local development plan call for sites, it's recommended that the amended TORs, the final revised terms of reference, be adopted. So unless anybody pops up a yellow hand, we will assume that that is okay. Thank you very much. So now, again, can I just reiterate my apology to all members and members of the public for an unfortunate use of a word beginning with B earlier. I apologise for that. Agenda item 10, BUA Honiton at 50. This is a fantastic story. We're absolutely delighted, as Mark will say, that we have a couple of people involved in this project attending at the moment. Councillor Jack Rowland, I see your hand is still up. Is that?
No, I'm just getting in early to speak on this item.
Okay, I'll save that then. Thank you very much. So can we come over to Mark, please, for a report on this? Thanks, Mark.
Well, as I said, there are two members of the public, Margaret from Honiton Museum and, excuse me, I've lost him on the screen.
Mahendra
as well. So whether you wanted to hear from them first, but I can do a quick introduction, which is that you learn something every day. And not being as old as some of you, I wasn't aware of the fact that 50 years ago, the old Honiton Army camp was used as a resettlement centre. So it was really interesting to get this proposal come through. And my recommendation is that we support it. And fundamentally, the reason it's here before you is I think it's appropriate to approve a small budget to facilitate the celebrations. And that forms the basis of my two recommendations. But over now to members of the public, if you want, Chair.
Okay, that's absolutely fantastic. So we have both Mahendra and Margaret here. We'd love to hear from either of you. I don't know if you've got anything planned, but over to you, please. Ooh, is anybody there? Are you both on mute?
I was waiting for Mahendra to start first.
Yes, thanks.
I'm the curator of All Hallows Museum in Honiton. I've been there, volunteering there for 22 years. When I started, I realised that although the museum started in 1946, they haven't or didn't collect any information about anything since then. So we've been trying to fill in the gap. I was in Honiton in 1972, and I do remember the Ugandan Asians coming here, and a huge amount of people volunteered to help out, and from other parishes around the town. In October, one of our group, Bina Pepper, put a post on Facebook saying thank you to the people of Honiton for helping out, because she came here in November 1972. And there was a huge response from that post. A lot of people remembered it happening, a lot of people volunteered. And then in January, Mahendra put out another post, and we've had over 160 responses so far, and there is a lot of interest. So it's mainly getting information to keep in the museum and like an archive, but also to sort of celebrate and mark the thanks of the Ugandan Asians. The majority of the adults have sadly gone, but children and grandchildren of the original refugees want to say thank you to the town.
Thanks, Margaret, very much. Just fascinating historic story there. Can I ask, Mahendra, would you like to add anything to that?
You're on mute, Mahendra. It's a trap we all fall into.
No, I went to the mute when Margaret was speaking. Yes, I arrived there in October 1972 as a 16-and-a-half-year-old kid. In my last 90 days, I was turned from a kid into a lively lad, and as a responsibility for seeing my family out of Uganda, because my father was blind, from a boy, I became a man with all the responsibility. So by the time I arrived at Honiton, particularly me, was quite familiar with all the rules, regulations, etc. So while at the camp, I helped a lot of people to do translations, etc. We went out to play football, hockey, volleyball, etc. And on the 40th anniversary, I was trying to do something, but because I was working, I was busy. So on the 50th, I thought we ought to do something, and particularly to thank the people from Honiton. I've been to Honiton quite a few times, and I know that the whole scenario has changed. Physically, it's now Heath Park. When I came there about 25 years ago, there was some buildings were still remaining there before the houses were built. So I took the initiative. I thought I'll find some old people and have a reunion, have a drink in a pub or something, I'd travel down and thank them for it. But as it turned out, it's turned out to be a bigger occasion. Now, what my intention is, and my ambition is to collect all the archives from the Asians who were at that camp. There were nearly 2,000 people who passed through that. Is to collect the archives, their photographs, etc., and hand it over to Margaret for keeping. And in doing so, it will be one of the very few museums or the place where the Ugandan Asian archives will be. And other thing that I was looking at is also that while we were there, we were too busy getting ourselves out of a pickle, and we left without saying thank you to anybody. And it would be appropriate for us to come with music, food, and all the entertainment that we could do in Honiton and bring everybody together and celebrate it. Because for the last 50 years, we particularly have done fairly well. I particularly have been involved in a lot of faith forums. I've been a president of local Hindu council, done a lot of work for charity, for historic gardens, etc. And I thought it'd be appropriate for us to, as Uganda nations, to organize something there. I've collected a lot of photographs, and while we're talking, I've been sending some photographs over to my colleagues. Photograph of Bunty Charles, who was awarded a BEM for helping other Asians, holding a baby, seeing them off, and that baby was born actually while the mother was in the camp. And the father sent me a birth certificate which says Hitfield Flat 20, Hut 22, Hitfield Camp. So what I've done is I've collected about 20 odd photographs, and I'm trying to find few more. And what we could do is just create a history, a I call it a festival in Honiton in October. And obviously I've written to Mark and the council with a proposal, and I think we're going to get together at some stage post this decision is to scope out and see how we can take it forward. And I look forward to all your support, not only for making a decision, but also all being well, joining us in October, and we create a big razzmatazz. And I've assured Margaret that apart from photographs and the memories, I'll be bringing a lot of Indian savouries and food.
Well, I think you've won the argument there, Mr. Debbie. Thank you very much. And you have to look at when you go into a Devon pub and see what plenty means down here. So take a London plate size and times it by 2. So we'll have great expectations there. But that's fantastic. It's so interesting. I was involved in some research recently that identified where some Polish people who had come over in the Windrush, they had been in various camps in Devon as well, and in fact ended up creating quite large Polish communities. So that was another interesting migrant story. In Seaton, where Tesco's is now, that was during the Second World War. That was an internment camp for people of German nationality. And I think if we can capture all these stories, it's fantastic. It's it doesn't appear on the surface to be an especially diverse place, East Devon, and yet it really does have this deep history. So thank you so much to you for bringing this to the council's attention, and to Margaret for the work you're going to do at Honiton as well. Now, on the basis, members, I'm hoping you're all going to give this a tick in the box. Can you limit it to 60 seconds each? Councillor Philip Skinner, please, first.
Thank you very much, Leader. And I just want to congratulate Mahadri in what he's done and what he's achieving, and for us as a local authority in giving £5,000 for his pub celebrations, having a drink down the pub. But I see what they're trying to do. I think it's wonderful that to actually be marking the sorts of things that have happened in East Devon over the years, and it's what creates our history. And our history is really, really important to us. And I think it's a real mark of what you've done, Mandra, and well done you, and finding out where others are and the likes, and what's happened with that, and putting that history together and getting it somewhere, especially through Margaret, through the museum and all that, just creates something more for Honiton and the history of what we got. So that's me done. Thank you very much and well done. And I'm really proud to actually support the £5,000 from this authority in support of what you're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Councillor Peter Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to mention, I don't know if people realise that there's at least one of the old army camp buildings. It's actually on the industrial side, not on the housing side. Still exists, but it's had a new skin on it. It's Pilgrim Antiques.
That's fascinating. Margaret and Mahendra, were you aware of that? That there's some fabric left?
I was told, because that's when you go in behind, on the right hand side of the BP garage, isn't it? If you turn right and follow that road. but we'll definitely look into that.
Yeah.
And I have actually, just to say that I've actually invited for that October event quite a few Ugandan nations to come down, and I've got the photographic map of what the area used to be in 1896 and when it was a camp and what it has become now. So it'd be interesting to show it to people, the transformation from fields to the camp to the industrial area. And if that is still there, that'd be good to get people to associate with what it was like.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Faithful. A brilliant contribution. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mahendra, for bringing this subject forward to the attention of the council. Believe it or not, I was actually 22 years old in 1972. I know that's difficult to believe. I was actually at the time working in central London for a company which also had offices out in Uganda. And I remember full well the people that were working for the same company that came over at that time, many of whom sadly no longer with us, but a few that I've managed to keep in contact with. And to say that they were the most hardworking, sociable people that I've met during my life, they certainly met that criteria. So based on that, I'm really pleased to see this 50-year anniversary is being recognised in this way. I'd like to formally recommend moving the two recommendations that are on the agenda paper. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Rowland. Councillor John Loudon, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll second Councillor Rowland on this one. What I'll also say is that I'm younger than Councillor Rowland. I was only 19 at the time. But yes, sadly, I do remember. I remember I have a vision in my mind of seeing families coming down the steps out of planes at airports. You know, thank goodness we were able to get people out from Idi Amin's awful regime as quickly as we did. And I've got a friend who was a young civil servant who helped resettle some of Mahendra's colleagues. I think it may have been the Leicester area. I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. But I am happy to endorse this, and I do thank the Chief Executive for turning this item around quickly once it was received. And I better declare an interest that I shall be attending so that I can eat some of the food, because it's just something I love to eat. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mahendra, it's these old guys like Councillor Loudon and Councillor Rowland who will eat the most. So beware when they turn up.
We'll make sure there's ample.
Good, thank you. I'm a sort of slim Jim, and you know, I won't need very much. Councillor Faithful has very kindly pointed out in chat, but I'm happy to say it here, Mahendra, that the building he's referred to is on the junction of Devonshire Road and Durham Way. Right, so let's go to a vote on that, please. Green ticks, red crosses, blue what's-its, and so forth. If we can do that now, please, and if Amanda can see how we're going on.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Brilliant, great item, life enhancing. Thank you so much for that. We now move on to, and thank as John said, thank you very much to the CEO for getting this in as fast as he did. Agenda item 11 is the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Hardly an unrelated subject, is it? And we've got a report here from Mr. John Golding, our strategic lead for housing, health and environment. John, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I may introduce the report. So this report advises Cabinet of a commission entered into for support arrangements for Ukrainian refugees and sponsor or host households, and seeks approval of Cabinet for an exemption to standing orders. We've recently entered into a service level agreement with East Devon Citizens Advice to deliver this service on our behalf. The support service has been mobilised and is actively supporting refugees already. My understanding is that other Devon districts are using their community and voluntary groups to provide this service, as they're well placed to support refugees. The service will be funded through the government's commitment to local authorities to provide £10,500 per Ukrainian refugee. And in commissioning the service, we were following the guidance that government issued to councils a couple of months ago now, it was. The Homes for Ukraine scheme requires local authorities to perform several duties: property inspections of the sponsor or host family's accommodation to ensure it's suitable for refugees, the DBS or safeguarding checks on host households, payment of one-off interim or subsistence payments to refugees, and the monthly payments to host households. And the final element for local authorities was to provide this support service that is intended to welcome refugees and help them integrate into communities. The government data that we have, I've put in the report. I have to say it's pretty poor and notoriously inaccurate, but from our data and from our own intelligence, we understand that there's something like 95 households in East Devon that have put themselves forward for sponsors, accommodation sponsors, if you like, and that will accommodate something like 300 refugees. We think that perhaps a third of the refugees have already arrived in East Devon, and as we've been processing a number of these subsistence payments, we've pretty much inspected all of the properties and found the vast majority suitable for occupation. I've set out the costs of the support package in the report. And as you will have spotted, we're talking about something like £32,000 for the initial Citizens Advice Bureau work, with an option to increase additional support workers if they're required to meet the demand that we face. And I'm also seeking a further 10,600 to support two organisations mentioned in the report to help provide a complete package of support for those arriving. The minimum requirement the government asked of us is for a single welfare check, but we realise that ongoing support will be required for many of the refugees arriving here for things like access to medical, welfare, social, educational services, even transport, food and clothing, and language translation services. So we can develop our support package with CAB depending on the level of demand that we get from the refugees requiring our support. We've established a virtual team of officers with representation from housing, finance, environmental health, and our comms team. And we're supported by Team Devon, who are trying to coordinate the efforts across the county. It's likely that we will need to flex the service level agreement and adapt the support package as we better understand the needs of refugees and host households. We'll also need to plan for a transition or exit strategy, as the scheme only requires sponsors to commit for a minimum of 6 months. So we're already starting to think about whether host families withdraw their offer after a 6-month period and rematching with alternative accommodation, etc. And I asked Cabinet, as I say, to approve the exemption to standing orders and the in effect, this service level agreement that we've entered into. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, John. Looking for any comments or questions outside of Cabinet first, please. Nobody there, so thank you. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you to John Golding and his team for firstly the report that he's put towards in front of us this evening, but also the amount of work that's been going on behind the scenes, because it's another example of an extra demand being placed on our services that probably wasn't expected at the start of this budget year. So thank you for that. Having read the report, I mean, there's a few things in there that do concern me, and that's only in respect of the mental health support that may be required for some of these people because of the trauma that they've gone through. And also the fact that was mentioned in there about mental health care, when many of our residents can't get registered with an NHS dentist these days. So it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens in practice if any of these people do need to get dental care in the future. So it's subjects revolving around healthcare and the support that may be available that do concern me. But apart from that, I welcome the information that's in this report, and I'd like to move the recommendations that are contained in that report as well. Thank you.
Councillor Rowland. I can see a hand from outside Cabinet. Councillor Peter Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've been having conversations with John Golding and Jamie Buckley, or through John Golding. There's been a bit of issues with the conversation cafe is being set up by quite a substantial amount of Russians, and some Ukrainians have been finding that a bit hard to say. You're coming from a war zone, they don't particularly want to be stuck with a load of Russians. I said that there's been quite a bit of conversation. I don't know if anything further has been done about that situation.
Peter,
I don't know how common an issue it is.
Can I just stop you there, because the obvious sensitivities on this? Just ask you a question to clarify that the conversation cafe. What is that?
That's Devon. It's
the
Ukraine drop-in place in Exeter.
Right. And okay, so the Community Conversations Cafe. Sorry, I know what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay, I think let's just note that comment, please, and John can have a look at that. I think we better not go into this too much further. Okay, but that's noted, Peter. Thank you. Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
I would just like to say that I'm pleased with the comments that Councillor Rowland made. I wholeheartedly agree with this. With regard to the mental trauma that these people have been going through, I would imagine, oh, hang on, I've got to switch on because my internet's about to go. Sorry, wrong one.
Don't worry.
Yes, I would imagine that the mental trauma these people have been put through is going to be immense. If you look at Mariupol, for example, it's not just a question of them having windows blown out, that their homes have been deliberately demolished, flattened, erased, so that they have nowhere to go back. I think 6 months is not going to be nearly enough to be able to help these people. But I would like to second this this motion and or this recommendation, because I think this is very, very badly needed.
Thank you, Councillor Rickson. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. Just want to add a slight amendment, if possible, to what Jack's proposed. Under 1.2, it obviously states that we're a very unfortunate position that we don't have a CVS function in the council. We are one of the only local authorities in the southwest not to have that. And what I'd like to see, if possible, is John to bring a report back to a future cabinet. I'm not saying bring it tomorrow, but to a future cabinet meeting and looking at how we can scope and possibly finding the budget of bringing that service back in-house. It's something that is desperately needed. Not just for this in particular, but obviously joining up other community and voluntary groups in and around East Devon, we are actually finding that East Devon as a whole is getting less grants received to our community groups because we don't have this CVS function. It is a function that used to be held by Devon County that's kind of been passed down to districts, but it's something that I feel that we need to kind of pick up the baton on now, and somehow try and find the budget to adequately resource this. So if that's possible, can I just add that as another recommendation onto what Councillor Rowland's previously proposed?
Okay, I'm wondering if doing it by means of a recommendation on this agenda item, which is about Homes for Ukraine, is the best way of doing that, Dan. I think. I mean, can I come back to John? I think what Councillor Ledger has said as clearly, I would imagine, would have universal agreement. You know, we don't have a CVS. You can see the problem with that. I'm very, very aware of the fantastic work you and Megan and others have done in coordinating. Jess did it as well, in coordinating voluntary services, but it has been on an informal basis, hasn't it, really? But I mean, what would be your view on that, John, about the chances of us trying to, you know, reanimate something like that? Chair, just procedurally, if it would help. Thank you, Mark. I think we can just take that forward and potentially sort of add it as an item onto the forward plan. And then John and myself can work on that at an appropriate space or window in John's workload, if that's okay. Okay, thanks, Mark. Is that okay, Councillor Ledger, that we capture it like that?
Definitely. I've chucked it onto everyone's laps today. I don't expect it to be done anytime soon. Thank you.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So we have a proposer and a seconder for that. If we go to a vote with Amanda overseeing us, green ticks, red crosses and so forth. Thank you.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, councillors and members. Thank you, John, for that report. Agenda item 12 is to do with the commissioning of work for wildlife site impact assessment and mitigation, where we require an exemption to contract standing orders. We don't seem to have an officer speaking on that. I can help. Mark. Yes, thanks, Mark. Go on. Thank you. So fundamentally, both for this item and the next item, there is necessary work that is required to be done coming out of the draft local plan. So this item is in relation, as you've just said, to the habitat regulation assessment and the mitigation strategy. The next item is in regard to landscape assessment regarding the possible new communities and the sites associated with that. So the work is pressing. We've got on with it in the sense that it's below the formal reporting level, but now it's a question of noting the exemption to standing orders, if that's okay with Cabinet. Okay, if anybody can hear me, Councillor Edward, could you take over the chair for the moment? I seem to have lost the internet connection.
Of course. So, outside of Cabinet, Councillor Skinner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say very quickly, obviously this has to be done, just moving on quickly. And I'm just going to, add what would be my weight to supporting this document and just move on quickly, really. Thank you very much. There's not much more to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Thank you, Councillor Hayward, for that quick work. I have no idea what happened there, so thank you. It looks as if we have agreement on that. Looking at those recommendations at agenda item 12. Sorry, I'm just checking what it is we might need to vote on here. So the recommendation is that Cabinet notes the attached exemption to standing orders have been approved in accordance with the Council's contract standing order. So in other words, we're just noting this. Do we need a vote, Mark, on that?
Yes, please, just a formal
Okay,
vote.
thank you very much. Cabinet, can we go to a vote then, please, on that? Green ticks, red crosses, etc.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mark has, under agenda item 12, effectively explained the purpose of agenda item 13 as well. So can I just look for any questions from members outside of Cabinet? First, please. We've still got the ticks from last time. Councillor Philip Skinner, please.
Just to move it on quickly, Chair, it's fine. It's just
Lovely.
needs to be done. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. No comments from Cabinet. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Can we please then go to a vote? Green ticks, red crosses, and so forth, governed by Amanda. Oops.
Carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you, Amanda, very much. Thank you for Mark for your help on that. We now go to agenda item 14, project groups for Axminster and Seaton, the DCC Urban Renewal Fund. And on this, we have a report from Alison Hayward, our project manager for place, assets and commercialisation. Over to you, please, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. So this report relates to the Devon County Council's Devon Place Board work on Coastal and Market Towns project. Axminster and Seaton are amongst 8 towns across Devon that form part of a pilot project to explore the urban renewal opportunities in those towns. And part of the project involves establishing project groups for each town. This was set out in a report to Cabinet on 2nd of March, and officers were asked to present a further report to Cabinet recommending terms of reference and membership of the groups. So this report is therefore making those recommendations as detailed in the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Alison. Can I ask any members from outside of Cabinet, please, to indicate if they'd like to speak on this, ask questions, make comments, and so forth? No. So coming back into Cabinet, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Alison, for your report. I'm happy to move the 2 recommendations that are on the agenda paper. Can I just ask a question though, because with the Devon County Council work, there is reference made to these quick wins, so the timescale is quite tight on spending any money. Have we got any indication at all yet? And I apologise if I've missed something in reading the reports in the attached reports about what the actual budget is for each town at this stage.
No, we don't have at the moment. I mean, my understanding is that this is fairly small sums of money for the quick win projects of 5,000 or up to 10,000, say. But no, we don't have an overall indication on budget.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up to that, Alison, sort of broadening this out? How does this link in? I know it will be in an ad hoc way, but with Levelling Up Fund bids as well. What's the sort of, is there an interrelation with this?
Well, yes, in a sense, because we have been doing the Axe Valley study, which is focused on Axminster and Seaton, which part 1 of that study was looking at feasibility options with a view to using that information for future funding bids, which we are indeed doing now with the preparation for the Levelling Up funding bid. And so as part of, in relation to the Axe Valley study, the Devon Place Board rather nicely complements that because it's some further funding and to take a bit more of an overarching view of the towns and look at the wider kind of renewal opportunities and look at preparing a business case for one particular project in further detail. So it's another opportunity to do some further analysis of requirements for those towns.
Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful to make that link. Councillor Sarah Jackson, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm well behind this. The only query I do have is around the composition of the group, and I just wonder whether it would be advantageous to have the portfolio holder for culture, leisure, sports and tourism, and also strategic planning as part of that makeup, purely for that overarching sort of strategic level of understanding that filters through the council on a wider basis as well.
Are you agnostic on that, Alison, or what's your feeling on that?
Well, I think that the focus of the work is very much asset based in relation to opportunities that might be there for development. Whilst there may be some opportunities around some cultural aspects, it's more likely to be of a commercial nature or maybe residential. We don't know particularly at this stage, but I think one of the other aspects is that from the consultant's point of view, in terms of managing the group, we're keen to have local involvement of stakeholders and local businesses. And we do have a number of councillors at this point, and they do want to keep the numbers down to really not going more than 10 really in the group, 10 to 12. So I think in terms of a balance, we need to try to ensure that we have got more businesses engaged at this point, but obviously open to thoughts of others.
Thanks, Alison and Councillor Jackson. I wonder if I just may invite the thoughts of the portfolio holder for economy and assets. Councillor Jackson's sort of come forward with this as an idea. What would your feeling be, given what Alison has just said about that?
Thank you, Chair. I think, well, I mean, it's safe to say from members and members of reading the report, there is some duality here with my role. And I personally, I can quite understand what Councillor Jackson has said. I'm sort of looking here on my screen at perhaps Councillor Rowland, and that perhaps, given that delegated authority is going to be afforded to the service lead for PAC, perhaps there might be occasions when I might myself suggest that Councillor Rowland may be able to deputise in that respect. Certainly in his finance capacity, I think there's more akin to the economy and assets issue through finance than there is, and I mean this respectfully to Councillor Jackson, than to culture, leisure and tourism and to strategic planning. But of course, I've just sprung this on Jack now, Councillor Rowland. But there might be occasions when I'm asked to have more of a lead as the clerk to one of those two authorities. So, Chair, would you be happy if I perhaps, or through you, ask Councillor Rowland his views on that? We're sort of bouncing it around a bit, but
yes, just to say, Councillor Hartland-Mouldy, I've noted that you're coming in. But yes, Councillor Rowland, would you have a view on what Councillor Hayward's just said?
I'm happy to respond to what's just been suggested, but whether you want to take people from outside Cabinet first and then I'll come back in after that. Quite happy to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, good advice, Councillor Rowland. Thank you very much. And I'll come back to you, Councillor Jackson, as well in a minute. Councillor Marcus Hartnell, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I wasn't going to actually comment because I felt that the report was fairly straightforward. But I would have to say that I think, given the limited amount of budget that's available to spend here, I think it would be important that there's as much local input as possible, and I would be a little bit concerned if we were overweighted with council input on this. So looking at the documents attached with the agenda, it does say, I think within I forget which document it was that I read, it was the attachment from Devon County. I think it said that people can be invited to join the group at any point. So it's not limited to what we agree on today. We can at some point bring others in if we needed to. So my view would be initially to keep it to a fairly small group with as lesser amount of council involvement as possible, to make sure that those from outside the council get the best of their representation and don't feel that they're being sort of overpowered by council input, because we want the communities and the businesses to sort of have their voice and to actually feel empowered that they're making a difference and they're being listened to, and those sorts of ideas coming from them will actually be delivered. So that's my view. And if we need to bring in others at another point, then there is scope to do that within the framework. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hartnell. I can see the point you're making. I suppose while you were saying it, I was then thinking back to various previous regeneration boards, perhaps these in the Seaton Regeneration Board, which arguably well, I don't know quite what happened there in the end, but that's potentially an argument for more oversight from the council and cabinet than for less, perhaps. We're just putting that out there. Councillor Moulding, please.
Yes, Chair. I'm very much of a similar opinion to Councillor Marcus Hartnell. I'm looking now at the makeup of the project group as suggested in item 2.6. Obviously, there needs to be strong representation from the town councils with the mayor, clerk, and perhaps another councillor. But I'm particularly keen that business representatives and community groups have a chance to have a strong input into this. Like has been said, we can always bring in other councillors if it's seen that it's necessary. But I don't think we want to stifle the opinions of the business and community groups, because I think that's what this really is all about.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Moulding. I was just looking to see if Councillor Sam Hawkins is in tonight, and he isn't. We've had the privilege of seeing a report from the auditors about Seaton Jurassic, and this will come to A&G, so I absolutely won't comment on it now. One of the problems that report discloses, without anticipating any debate at A&G, was that it got away from the council a bit. So my view is slightly hardening in support of Councillor Jackson, funnily enough. But anyway, back to you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in response to Alison Hayward, I was thinking more on a kind of strategic oversight kind of level, really, more so than on a cultural basis. Certainly my suggestion with respect to the culture, leisure, sport and tourism portfolio holder was with tourism in mind more so than anything. I'm very aware that some of the schemes that could come forward could be heavily influenced by tourism or affect tourism, particularly for places like Seaton. And so I thought it would be sensible to have that input at that level, or at least the oversight to hear the feedback from those stakeholders with that respect. And similarly, with respect to strategic planning, I'm very aware that we've got the local plan in train for production, and actually there could be some learnings that come out of groups such as this that would then help feed into those projects too. So it certainly wasn't an attempt to sort of dominate proceedings or to make it unmanageable, but I would have expected that the sort of wider understanding from those particular portfolio holders would potentially be quite useful in that respect as well. So that was really the rationale for the suggestion. But also I hear what you're saying around Seaton Jurassic and other similar projects that have happened historically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. I think, Alison, I'm just looking at the report again, and you used that dangerous expression, quick win. And of course, tonight, it's going to be a slow debate. I'm sorry about this. So going to Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Luda, Chair. I noticed that Councillor Hookway and Haywood want to come back. I had no idea, of course, when I invited people from outside Cabinet to speak exactly what they were going to say, but I do find myself in accord with what Councillor Hartnell and Moulding did say. I think it's important as well not to make this at this stage too top heavy with councillors, and we do need that input from business and other interested members of the public in these meetings to get their input. I suppose we do have the benefit, looking at it from the Seaton project point of view, that two of the ward members are members of Cabinet, so they do have that strategic overview as well about what's going on in other areas of the council. So I think there is that good oversight in that respect anyway. And as has already been said, we do have the opportunity to invite other people to join us if there is a need. And going back to Councillor Haywood's fine offer to me, I fully accept what he said, and I'm quite happy to do that.
So, Councillor Rowland, you're already on board as one of the ward members.
Correct.
But you'd also be there as portfolio holder for finance, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, a noble offer. Thank you very much. Okay.
If that was the offer, if I've interpreted it correctly.
Yes. No. Exactly. Let's. So brilliant. So, Councillor Nick Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have been watching this debate with interest, and I think it is absolutely right that the board, the panel should be kept as it is at the moment, and let's hear what local people have to say. I think later on, if the thing is stalling, then it would be the right time to bring in officers who've got experience about tourism, and hopefully by then the tourism strategy will be in place anyway. I personally hope that the group is successful. I think it's very important for Seaton that they are, and I do wish them well, and I hope that they will come up with ideas that will invigorate the town and make it attractive to tourists, because I think the really crucial point is if the town is attractive to tourists, more people will come, and that will be a very effective stimulus to the local economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nick. Alison, can I just start? Forgive me, it's in the report somewhere probably. But if what we're setting up with Hardesty Jones Associates is this new project group, how long might the project group go on for? I mean, a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? What would be the time scale?
It is a fairly short-term arrangement for the duration of them establishing and completing their work. So I would expect 6 months to 9 months, maybe. That was their initial thinking.
Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking about the risks in this with, let's say it goes on 11 months, 12 months, and there's key decisions being made. We're post an election. And at the moment we're depending upon an overlap, an informal overlap between people having certain roles. I'm still hearing Councillor Jackson, really. Councillor Haywood.
Thank you, Chair. Well, really, I mean, thank you for all those contributions, and I think they're all sound, and you could be encapsulated simply in the fact that the membership can be broadened, can be widened. We can bring experts in, we can bring particular portfolio holders in, as and when the topic within this, because there are multiple streams within this. And I think the fact that portfolio holders can come in, we are fortunate one might say, in the Axe Valley, in that Cabinet is well represented in multiple ways. But I think, taking Councillor Jackson's point, we can bring in members from Exmouth, Councillor Hookway, bringing expertise from Exmouth. They've been there, they've done this. And so I think the fact that we have the ability here, entrusting to the service lead to change the membership, to draw in people with expertise. We have the ward members outside of Cabinet to rely upon as well. Their input's just as important. We have yourself, we have Councillor Parr. So, and of course, Councillor Moulding, Councillor Hall. So we have access to all those people. So I ordinarily would be keen to press ahead and move this, Chair. But perhaps it might be appropriate if a non-Axe Valley Cabinet member were to oblige. Otherwise, it might seem a little bit parochial, but I'll be guided entirely by you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So, in essence, Councillor Hayward, you're not supporting Councillor Jackson's idea of adding in 2 more portfolio holders, tourism and strategic planning at this stage?
No, I don't believe so, but I'm supportive of what Councillor Jackson said, in that if we need to bring them in, the scope of this allows for that to happen, and we will entrust to the officer to advise us when additional expertise is needed from other portfolio holders and from other business representatives. I mean, the reference here within the report on 2.6 says business. It could be expanded to businesses. It could be expanded to businesses/business groups, because that would also entail chambers of commerce to be brought into the fold. So I don't want to get too bogged down by semantics, but semantics sometimes are important when you're fleshing these things out. So I'm happy to proceed, knowing that we can call upon whoever we need, whenever we need them to make sure that this thing delivers what it's supposed to deliver. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry that sounds a bit vague, but I'm supportive of this, but I know it can be amended as need be.
Okay, just final clarification, Councillor Hayward. Would you therefore be, it refers to a chair, is that you as the chair of this project group?
I think, given my other role, I would defer to another at the first instance. Perhaps this could be chaired, and I'm sorry to put Alison on the spot, perhaps chaired by an officer would be more appropriate, with feedback coming in from all the parties as to agenda items, and that could be shared from Alison out to the group. But I think that, we are reliant on officers to give us advice, and they get their guide from the consultants and the other parties. I wouldn't personally like to chair this because that could be misconstrued.
No, I can see that. Equally, I can see an argument for a member chair. But Alison, how did you see that going, as who might be chairing this? I mean, not that this is the deal breaker, but just out of interest, how would you view that?
I think we would expect that the group would appoint a chair, and that it would probably be a councillor. And I think I understand the issue around Councillor Paul Hayward, the portfolio holder. But I think it may well be one of the other cabinet members that chairs that. That's what I would expect, and that's experience that is how that has maybe worked in the past. I think officers will obviously be at the meetings, and obviously and will be part of that group in presenting information alongside the consultants. I think that the chair would be maybe one of the local ward members or a cabinet member. So we take guidance on that, and that's, I think, where with the recommendation with the PAC service lead to be able to discuss that in consultation. Or to determine that, I think, or in consultation with the portfolio holder to decide on that. Just So.
Okay, no, thank you. I take that point, and I think that I don't think it is appropriate, and I'm sure you weren't advocating it, Alison, that an officer should chair. I just think it's to the officer talent in the room. You know, we're hearing from them, so we're just moving on. We'll get through this as fast as we can. Sorry about that. Oh God, Councillor, who have we got? Coming back out, Councillor Hartnell, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to say I don't think it's really appropriate that an officer should chair the meeting. But the other point I'd make is that we do have a portfolio holder for the economy, and it's exactly what the portfolio holder for the economy should be doing, is chairing something like this. So it just seems a little bit at odds that we're in a position where that portfolio holder can't take up a role that he should be taking. And it's a little disappointing from that respect, because you would expect the economy portfolio holders to have control of this kind of project. Certainly previous regeneration boards I've seen, certainly the one in Seaton, and I know other regeneration boards in Axminster previously have had the economy portfolio holder as chair, and that's part of their remit. It's their job. So I'm a little bit disappointed that can't be taken by the portfolio holder because of other interests. It's a bit disappointing. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I respond to that immediately?
Please do, Councillor Hayward. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be more than happy to chair this. I've chaired a multitude of things. Unfortunately, the nature of politics in East Devon is bitter from time to times. And I'm grateful to Councillor Hartnell for giving me his support. I'll be delighted to chair this. What I would not want is at any point in the future for things to be hurled at me by members of an opposition group. And it has happened in the past. I trust we've moved on from that period now, that everyone understands what we're doing is for the good of the Axe Valley, and that I can undertake that role. I know within my heart I can, and that I have the ability, as I have been doing for the past 3 years, to juggle my different roles and prove to members of the council, prove to members of the public that I can detach myself from one and quite easily do another, because that's the nature of being a councillor. That's the nature of upholding the Nolan principles. So to come back to Councillor, I'm more than happy to chair this, and I'd be delighted and honoured to, in order to bring economic benefit and prosperity to the Axe Valley, where I live, where a great many number of you live. But if at some point in the future, circumstances dictate me to play back this meeting to anyone who wishes to throw...
Councillor Hayward, I think point made.
Yeah,
Marcus, Councillor Hartnell, are you happy, please, for it just to be noted in the minutes that you are supportive of the Economy and Assets portfolio holder chairing this project group? Is that okay, Councillor Hartnell? Because that then
so the point that I was making, Chair, is that it is the role of the economy portfolio holder to be overseeing this kind of intervention locally. That if East Devon District Council have been gifted with this project from Devon County to make an intervention locally to promote regeneration, then that comes under the responsibility of the portfolio holder for economy.
Okay, thank you. So the point you just made, can we just capture that for the minutes, please, officers? Because I think that gives Councillor Hayward a reassurance that, you know how it is, don't you, Marcus, that somebody then doesn't turn around later on and say, oh, hang on a minute, he's wearing too many hats. You know, it's expected.
But that's not the point. The point is, it's the responsibility of that portfolio holder.
Well,
so
Marcus,
therefore, my interest isn't in how many hats that Councillor Hayward is wearing. My interest is in that it's the responsibility of the portfolio holder for the economy. So therefore, that's the point I raised. Now, if there are conflicts of interest, then he will have to deal with those accordingly.
Yeah, of course he will. Of course he will. But okay, that's notwithstanding. Yes,
I've been named yet again. There are no more conflicts of interest than Councillor Hartnell being a Devon County councillor and also an East Devon District councillor. We manage our conflict of interest in a professional way in accordance with the Nolan principles. I'll be delighted to chair this in a professional and decent and mindful of the Nolan principles manner. Thank you. I think that's the end of that matter. Thank you.
Okay. So can we, before the minutes go out, Democratic Services, can I just check this item, please, just to reflect we've captured what seems to me to be a consensus? But I think it's fair.
I've had my hand up for some while. I was going to speak, but I seem to be dragging myself back to the bottom of the pile.
Okay, no, I see the two speakers there. So if I come first well, I'll come to you, Councillor Skinner, please then. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I just wanted to actually reiterate on this subject. It's quite a simple matter. Councillor Hartnell is absolutely right. And as a previous portfolio holder for economy, it's the sort of role that the economy portfolio holder should be playing. And I think Councillor Hayward has quite rightly said he's more than happy to take the role, and that's fine. But whatever comes rumbling down the road is through the declarations of interest, and those declarations of interest he will uphold. If he thinks he can uphold them, then that's fine. And let's just crack on and do that. And I'm in support of the economy portfolio holder playing his role. And if he's got into a predicament that he can't play his role, then he can't be the economy portfolio holder, or he can't do the other role, or whatever it's going to be. But that's for Councillor Hayward to decide as we get further down the road. But the point is, it shouldn't be an officer. I think we've clarified that, Chair, through you. You've clarified that point, and it should be the economy portfolio holder playing the role. And let's move on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Just very nearly at the end here. Coming back to Alison, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just a clarification, really, and I refer to it in the report, paragraph at the end of paragraph 2.4, that the role of the group in approving a renewal strategy or projects or quick win projects to pursue does not commit the council to deliver these. Sorry, this is a bit out of context now, but it relates to some points made earlier about concerns about previous boards, etc., and having element of control from the council's point of view. So I was just merely pointing out that it doesn't commit this council to deliver what comes forward in ideas and proposals from the group or the forum or whatever it calls itself.
Thank you very much. I'd like to propose from the chair, please, that what we do is that we accept this proposed structure with the addition of just one other portfolio holder, which is for culture, leisure, tourism and sport, but not for strategic planning. And so I'd like to propose that because I can see that within the point that Councillor Jackson is making, there is a wider strategic overview here. I don't think it would be appropriate for the strategic planning portfolio holder to be there at this stage, but could be there, obviously called in to listen or be told or whatever. So given that we've recorded that all sides are happy that the portfolio holder for assets and management should be chairing this, and that will be captured in the minutes. And I can see what Councillor Hayward means. I'd like to suggest we do add Councillor Hookway in. And can we please, unless anybody's got a comment on that, which I'm very welcome, very happy to receive. Councillor Jackson.
Only in so much as to second that. I just think it would be a very useful input to have portfolio holder for tourism involved in those discussions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Let's go to a vote then, please, with Amanda keeping us in some kind of order. Green ticks, red crosses, please.
That's 8 votes in favour and 1 against, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Alison, as well. Sorry that got a bit sort of council-ish, didn't it? Or councillor-ish. But, we are a council. So we go on to agenda item 15 now for the reuse of the Brixington Capital Fund for the Axminster Skatepark leading to split play strategy. It's a tongue twister. And we've got a report here, please, from Tom Buxton-Smith, the Engineering Projects Manager. Over to you, please, Tom.
Chair, if I may, I was going to introduce the
No,
report.
I was just, I couldn't see Tom anywhere. So
yeah, Tom's here.
Oh, yes.
Tom will
Okay.
answer any difficult questions should they arise, Chair.
Okay. You
Chair.
do the scene setter then, John, if you wish, unless somebody
Chair,
else does.
sorry, Chair, can I also jump in? So you've got Councillor Moulding, who I can't see on my screen, but is still here. We just need to deal with this new world issue of people speaking and leaving. But I think appropriately, Councillor Moulding could be in for the report and then go to him to speak. And then he will be removed to the waiting room if that's acceptable.
Okay, so Councillor Moulding, would you like to stay for the report and so forth, and are you happy to be ejected?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to hear Tom Buxton-Smith's report, and then I shall have a few words and then leave the meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Andrew, for that. So where were we? Back to you, please, John.
Thank you, Chair. So this report attempts to secure funding for phase 2 of the Skatepark upgrade in Axminster. We're proposing to reallocate funding from our capital programme from Brixington Park, as this scheme has secured Section 106 monies, so the delivery of the Brixington scheme will be unaffected. To allay any fears, the Brixington project is effectively double funded now, with capital allocation and the Section 106 funding that was secured following a Exmouth sports vote. So the funding package for Axminster Skatepark is explained in the report, and importantly will, if agreed this evening, will avoid any time out from the negotiated developers' contribution as explained in the report. We need £182,000 for the phase 2 scheme. Some of it will be funded by the reallocation of capital monies if agreed tonight, and £82,000 will be funded by Axminster Town Council. The arrangements for future ownership, management and maintenance are detailed in the report. And the report also touches on a forthcoming play strategy and this concept that we've come up with of fairer play, which, again, if members approve in future, will allow town and parish councils and community groups access to compete for capital funding for improvement and provision of play space. The principle of play provision is recognised as an important child development issue, a health and wellbeing issue, and we're trying to use our limited resources in the best possible and creative way that we can to get more bang for our buck, if you like. And the Axminster Skatepark will be an early example of this new fairer play approach, working together with others to help deliver schemes in a partnership way. And happy for any questions, Chair. Tom and I will attempt to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, John. I really like the way this has been. It's a sort of transformative strategy for a wonderful project, long awaited. Councillor Andrew Moulding, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And could I first of all read out a note sent to me by Councillor Ian Hall, who is also chair of the Axminster Skatepark charity. If that's agreeable, then I would like to read his note out.
I'm sure it is, Councillor Moulding, just as long as it's not a party political broadcast.
Hardly. No, it's all very supportive of everything that the council are doing on this, Chair.
Okay,
so what he says is that he's sorry he's unable to attend this evening, but as chair of Axminster Skatepark, I'm delighted to see this agenda item for consideration this evening. Delivery of the first phase is going very well, and I would like to thank everyone who has helped to get us this far. Hopefully tonight a decision will be seeing the vision for completion of the whole skate park, and that could become a reality for the Axminster community. He makes a note about the fact that Axminster Skatepark have been responsible for the site for nearly 10 years when it was handed over by Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre and on a peppercorn rent. And one of the conditions of handing that over was that safety and safeguarding was paramount at all times. And as indicated in the Cabinet report, the equipment became in a state of disrepair and was removed on safety grounds. And antisocial behaviour had unfortunately over time become a recurring event. Some will remember that the Mid and East Devon Crime Partnership and the Rural East Devon Police were also in attendance at the site meeting that's mentioned in the report, and they made it clear that it's essential we have an independent CCTV system installed to ensure that safeguarding is paramount and will be a deterrent for antisocial behaviour. And he says that the CCTV will be, to his understanding, a mirror in essence of Seaton's Skatepark CCTV model that can be accessed by officers on their mobile devices. And so he says we will continue to work with Axminster Town Council to deliver this equipment in conjunction with the completion of the skate park. And he finalises his letter by saying, I wish to thank District Officers Dave Cook, Dave Whelan and Selina Tallock, Axminster Town Council and their clerk, Councillors Jackson, Hayward, Arnott, the trustees of both Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre and Axminster Skate Park, the local police team. This has been an excellent example of partnership working for our communities, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all, I would suggest. So that's just Councillor Hall's comments, which are all obviously very positive, very much in favour of the recommendations in the report. From my point of view, I would like to also say that it seems an excellent way of delivering the sort of community play schemes that the District Council wishes to promote. And as is suggested, this is a Pathfinder project. And it's an example of what can be done when everybody works together. And so far on the Skatepark project, which is being delivered in an excellent way, it's a combination of representatives from Axminster Skatepark Charity, Cloakham Lawn Sports Centre, particularly Axminster Town Council, and indeed East Devon District Council. A lot of work being done by Councillor Hayward in particular to make sure that this really happens. And just to sort of reassure members that when the skate park work is complete, then it will be the responsibility of the Axminster Skate Park Charity to make sure that insurance is effected and that maintenance is carried out on a regular basis. Now, in order to do that, the Skate Park Charity has become a charitable incorporated organisation. We have a constitution which allows us to create a membership scheme, which until we had a really worthwhile skate park wouldn't have been worth tackling. But we want to try and get parents and supporters of the skate park to become members, say paying £5 a year or £10 a year to be a member. And that will enable us to acquire the necessary revenue to pay for the insurance and the maintenance of the skate park. So I think that's probably all I have to say, unless anybody's got any specific questions for me. And at that stage, I will leave the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Moulding, before you go, thank you for that. There's a sort of wonderful, almost philosophical question here about whether the absent avatar of Councillor Hall should have declared some kind of interest before you read out his statement. But I'll leave that to our legal officers to work out where that goes.
Anita's shaking her head, so that's a good sign.
No, okay, good. And I think it would be very welcome if you were able to pay some tribute to Councillor Jackson for her role in this, because I have been watching this discreetly, and I think she's been key in unlocking this. Are you happy? Would you?
No
agree?
question. I'm sorry I didn't mention Councillor Jackson previously, but I did mention East Devon District Council and their representatives, both officers and indeed councillors. And Sarah has been particularly supportive of this project, and for that I thank her profusely.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Anybody else would like to say anything that they feel Andrew should hear before he... Well, hang on, Andrew. No need to go quite yet because we're hearing more contributions. So nobody else...
Perhaps I should go. Anita would advise. She's nodding her head this time. So
She's nodding that
I think
she can't wait to get rid of you.
Okay.
When,
because of my declaration of interest, I will need to leave.
I think Chair, he does need to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's after his dinner anyway, I suspect. So good. Hang on, what happened there?
Gone to the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
Wherever that may be.
For a minute. Sorry. Okay. Right. Brilliant. Thank you. So we have, please, Councillor Haywood, Rowland, Young, and finally Jackson. And if we can keep it shortish, please, everybody, I'd be grateful because we've rather run over here, haven't we? So, Councillor Haywood.
Thank you, Chair. I just, as a resident, I'm just going to say a few thank yous. Some have been covered already, but I just think it's important for the public record. So, I'd like to thank the entire East Devon District Council team, and that's the legal, the finance, the street scene, the economy, so many others, because they have done incredible work incredibly quickly to start off phase one. I'd like to thank Maverick, who have dropped a lot of projects in order to get this done because there was Section 106 money, which was at risk of loss. So thank you to Maverick, especially thank you to Cloakenbourne Skatepark, Sports Centre and the Skatepark charity, and particularly Councillors Moulding and Hall, or in their personal capacity, Andrew and Ian, for their time and energy in allowing this to progress through a variety of manoeuvring. But without embarrassing Councillor Jackson, all this stemmed from a meeting on site where Councillor Jackson put forward a suggestion, a creative and innovative solution, a collaborative solution, which broke that decade-long impasse, and it unpicked that Gordian knot of how we deliver this skate park. The money was at real risk of being lost. That would have been catastrophic for the town. So I, as a resident, would like to thank Sarah. I know we're in the same party and we're both councillors, but as a resident and on behalf of every resident, they all owe Sarah a debt of gratitude because Sarah is instrumental in coming up with the concept that allowed this to happen. I'm grateful to all members here, everyone here, the fact we're discussing this tonight, but we're only discussing this tonight because of Councillor Jackson, who came up with that idea. Otherwise, we'd be bumbling around and we'd be handing a cheque back to a developer, and we're not. Now we have the opportunity to deliver an outstanding facility, and other towns, you know, Axminster looked enviously at Exeter, at Budley, at Seaton. Our younger residents, our boarders, our skaters, our BMXers had to travel to go there. Now they don't have to. They'll have the site on their doorstep, and you know, other people will grow up. Their children will use this. So I'm delighted as a resident that we are here. But I think, as you've said, Chair, for the record, Councillor Jackson needs to be thanked, and she has been, certainly from me, and I hope from everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haywood. Councillor Rowland, please.
Thank you. Well, how can I follow that? I'm really going to embarrass Sarah now, Councillor Jackson, because I know that she's been the prime mover in helping to come to this solution, what's been a very, very long saga. And there was talk not that long ago when I first got involved in these discussions about an alternative site being proposed for the skate park. So I'm really pleased that this is actually happening in the site that it was always envisaged for and should be. So, and I think the actual solution that's been put forward as well is a great blueprint for other projects now within East Devon. So I welcome this, and if it hasn't been already, I don't think it has, I'd like to formally move the recommendations that are on the agenda paper.
You're muted, Chair.
There's a good gag as well. I'll say it again. And now coming up to Collector Oscar, Councillor Sarah Jackson.
Thank you very much to Paul as a resident and to Councillor Rowland, not as a resident. Thank you. It's a project that has historically been quite fraught, and I I felt when looking at it as someone effectively new to it without having the burden of the history and watching how things were developing on a sort of social level around the project, that we needed a change of approach to get it back on track. And I put forward a suggestion, and it was one that was workable, and I'm really pleased that it was, because I wouldn't have wanted to be in a position right now where we were having to hand that money back to the developer for phase 1. And this scheme was only ever phased in order to make sure that we could achieve the Section 106 money that was set aside and not end up losing that. But I think it's really important that phase 2 is delivered, because that was the original scheme that the community were expecting in the first place, before everything got delayed through the practicalities of trying to work out how to deliver it. So I'm really pleased to see this come forward, and I hope that colleagues will see this as a great way of working with this joined up multi-agency approach, which could work for other areas as well, and enables us to work as a collective to deliver the best for our communities. And hopefully we'll be able to get this progressed in a timely way, which means that we can actually make the most of the quotes that we've been given for the works before the costs start escalating. As we all know, costs are escalating quite rapidly. And I think if we don't progress this in the way suggested, we could very much be in a position where the scheme might not be achievable because of those cost escalations. And it sets out a really good framework and case study for how this can be achieved elsewhere. So I would very much like to second the proposal to take the recommendations as in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. And finally, Councillor Jeff Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. These skate parks, they're big money items. They cost a lot of money to put in, but they have a big interest. The other day I was at Fear Park. There was at least 200 people on the skate park, and on the tennis courts next door there was 4 people. They cost about the same, so that just gives you an idea of how much interest skate parks are. There were people there that I met. They'd come down from the Midlands to use Sphere Skate Park, which is one of the best now in the country, I'm told. So brilliant, good news that we're getting another great skate park, and it's brilliant to see that the town and district councils and the communities and everyone else has worked together to get this together in speedy time. And thank you to the engineers from East Devon to have put in the hours and work to come up with yet another wonderful skate park for East Devon. I reckon we're going to have more skate parks than anywhere else in the country if we continue this rate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Look forward to one of your photo opportunities down there. Councillor Bickley can lend you a skateboard and some crutches perhaps as well. So finally, it's coming back outside Cabinet, but 30 seconds please, if that's okay, Councillor Skinner.
It's just a little quickie, and I've learned so much about this, and just a big well done to Sarah, and I forget who proposed this nomination. You seconded it, Councillor Jackson. Could you change that around and have it that Councillor Jackson actually proposes it and it gets seconded by whoever, just because I just think that Councillor, I know it's a nominee, but you've come up with this idea and you've really made it work. And there's nobody here that doesn't think it's a good idea. Everybody's behind it. And I just think it's just a little thing that just makes it right. Thank you.
I think it's a lovely sentiment.
I accept very good suggestion from Councillor Skinner, and because I moved it, I'm quite happy to accede to Councillor Jackson and end up seconding it. So thank you for that suggestion.
The question is whether Councillor Jackson's prepared to propose this. Councillor Jackson.
Go on, Sarah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it happens, it's all good. But yeah, go for it. Why not?
Councillor Rowland.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Rowland, do you? Yes, seconding. Right, okay. Sorry about this, Amanda. It goes on forever. So let's go to a vote on this then. Please, green ticks, red crosses, etc.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now, we've... I'd like some officer views on this, please. I'm terribly sorry we've been going for 2 hours 25. We've got one item left. Gloriously, I'm not going to be in it. But what would members, I think, we're all second-class citizens, we can hold on. But who's left? I mean, Simon, do you think we should take a break now or have a crack?
I think the officer advice is get on with it, Chair.
Push on. You're there, Mark. Sorry, I didn't. Okay, then we'll well, there we go. The CEO has spoken, officers, so that's it. In which case, thank you very much indeed, everybody, for this meeting, because I have a directly related NRI in the Part B meeting. I'll now leave, and good evening from me.
Okay, officers, I'll turn off the live stream recording at them, and now I'll come back to you when that's been closed. So if you just all bear in mind that you might still be recorded for a few seconds afterwards. Thank you.